Real YouTube is... Real YouTube is... Change location. Open the video for a surprise. It's me. Green screen man, I'm back. What's up? Hello everybody. I hope you missed me, except I'm still the same person, just now I have green screen again. My camera's also like slightly, wonky, but that's fine. Anyway, today I was thinking about which video I wanted to make, and so one could say, so there I was, considering what I wanted to do, and I thought about maybe, since this Pokemon is competitively legal, why don't we talk about it? Urshifu's had a lot of discussion around it. It's a Pokemon many people are very interested in. The reason for that is because of its unique ability, Unseen Fist, which means all contact moves break protect. I'm not entirely sure all of the details on this, I'll be completely honest. However, yeah, like my understanding is that the moves go through protect, like regardless. It's not like Z moves or Dynamax moves, where they only do a fraction of the percentage. My understanding is it does full damage through protect. Now I'm not guaranteeing that, so don't, if you're gonna use this thing, you should test it in game, which I will do once I intend to use it, or once I use it. But yeah, for now, we're going to assume it just goes through fully. But even without that, it's still a pretty interesting Pokemon. It has two different formies, single strike style and rapid strike style. A bunch of people commented saying the stats were different. I don't think the stats are different. I did some research into this myself. Had a friend look at it as well, and I'm fairly certain the stats are identical. Every resource online says the stats are identical to each other. So, yeah. And the stats are pretty interesting. It has a lot of very good stats and one very bad one, which really hurts it. However, overall, I think it's a good Pokemon, and I know people are going to want to use it, so why don't we talk about how we would use it? So whenever I do these kind of analyses, I like to look at the guides first, or I like to look at the stats first. And we can see here, the stats are identical, so even if my head is blocking it, you can still get the idea. High base HP, good base attack, good base defense, special attack doesn't matter, very low special defense, and then a relatively good speed stat for the current meta. Now, you're not going to outspeed everything with this, and they did just add in Terrakion, Virizion, and Cobalion, which are three Pokemon that are going to be... well, Terrakion actually specifically, I expect to see a good bit of play, personally. So, yeah, like, it's slower than those Pokemon, which hurts a lot. However, overall, the stats are pretty good, and if we had introduced this without any other additions, I expect it would see play. It's faster than a lot of the Pokemon in the current metagame, but it's, like, 97 isn't normally very high for VGC. However, this year, we were hovering around, like, 90-ish for a lot of Pokemon. We're 90 and below, or 95 and below, so 97 is pretty good. Yeah. Looking at the move pool, which is the next thing, there's a lot of good moves you use. I think almost always you run dual stabs, protect, and then a coverage move. Or, like, maybe not a coverage move, but a move of choice. So that's how a lot of the guides here are going to go. Gmax, the Dark-type Urshifu is, just going to let you know, I think the worst of the two. I would be more inclined to use the Water one. However, its move is very good. It's a Dark-type move that always crits, meaning, and it has 80 base power. So effectively, it's a 120 base power move that doubles in power, or like a 120 base power move that you can't intimidate or use screens or anything, because critical hits will ignore that. So, overall, I think it's a pretty good attack. Other moves that are notable, Sucker Punch. You can always run Aerial Ace for max flying. I don't normally recommend it, but on certain teams it can be good. Ironhead is a great coverage move to the fairy types that Urshifu struggles with, and then the normal kind of fighting type moves as well, like Close Combat, a bunch of other ones as well, Superpower, etc. Now, Surging Strikes is only 75 base power, but it hits 3 times, and it's a water move. Also pretty solid. When you consider that it's critting, the difference is actually close to probably 10 base power. I guess it would be like 12.5, I guess. What's 75 times 1.5? Yeah, it's a 12.5. Wait, no, it's an 8.5. 7.5? It's a 7.5 difference in base power. This is 112 base power, whereas Wicked Blow is 120 base power, thanks to the critical hit factoring. So, yeah, it's a little bit weaker. However, the multi-hit move is actually pretty nice. If you use this against an Excadrill, for example, you can one-shot it. The advantage of hitting Pokemon with Focus Sash is definitely sizable. Aqua Jet is weaker than Sucker Punch, but also more consistent. And then kind of same stuff, like Ironhead, Close Combat, etc. In terms of coverage moves, you do get Fire, Ice, and Thunder Punch. Those are always solid to have. Rock Slide is a good move. Protect and Detect are both very solid. You get Beat Up as well on the Dark-type for me. And so that's something you could consider, since we just added a bunch of Justified users. Helping Hand, it actually has some good support moves, so it has Helping Hand. I wouldn't normally recommend running it. U-Turn, yeah, but you have the option for Helping Hand if you want. One of them gets Dark-type, one gets Snarl. Again, I probably wouldn't run none of this Pokemon, but you could. And then Taunt, which is always good. Iron Defense, which I wouldn't recommend running, but you could run. Close Combat, Poison Jab, Zen Headbutt, Ironhead, like we mentioned. Stone Edge, and body press as well. And then in terms of support moves, they both get coaching, which I haven't quite figured out how good it is. I normally would prefer this on a bulkier fighting type rather than an offensive one, but yeah. And then you have Lash Out, but normally, honestly, I'd prefer whatever the dark type thing is called, Wicked Blow over Lash Out. That's just my personal advice. Because the thing is, Lash Out, if you get intimidated, it turns like if you're not intimidated, then that turn, then your move is like already weaker, like by a lot. And even if you are intimidated, you're still weaker. So you should always be running Wicked Blow, I think. Never run Lash Out on this thing. And then you can see a lot of max moves as well. So where does that leave us? Let's talk about the Urshifu sets here. So it goes like 1, 2, 3 for dark type, 1, 2, 3 for water type. And I think you run G-Max always. I don't see why you wouldn't. Unless on some instances maybe you want rain or darkness. But yeah, I think in general you want to run G-Max form. So the first one is kind of I'll just talk about these both at once, I think, because the theory behind them is very similar. Urshifu, Focus Sash, Unseen Fist, Max Speed, Max Attack, Jolly, with Detect, or that should be Detect. All Protect should be Detect. That's my bad. Close Combat, your signature move, and then a coverage move of your choice. So you can run Ironhead, you can run Taunt, you can run Helping Hand if you wanted, you could run Coaching if you wanted. Beat Up could be used on this Urshifu as well. The general idea here is like Urshifu's main advantage is that it hits through Protect. And if you're going to run Sash, maybe Dark type actually is better because, I don't know. It's like if you're going to get knocked out anyway, like the worst defensive typing might not matter as much, was my thought. But yeah, so basically the general idea here is you have a fast offensive Pokemon that can attack through Protecting and crit a lot, meaning you can use it to put your opponent in some pretty uncomfortable positions. Yeah. Detect, Wicked Blow, Close Combat, Ironhead. I think you always run Detect, your Water or Dark type move, and then Close Combat on these sets. And then last move is Personal Preference. I gave this one Ironhead, so you could at least hit Togekiss and Clefairy and the like. But yeah, generally, you don't really focus too much on Urshifu's bulk with this kind of set, with the Focus Sash set. You more focus instead on just the offensive power that you can offer, and you use Focus Sash to make sure you can always, like, at least take one attack, unless you're dealing with opposing Urshifu and they Surging Strikes KO you. I don't know. But for the most part, you should always be taking one attack from opponents, and yeah, that way, like, you don't have to worry too much about your more or less abysmal special bulk. So that's the general idea there. Again, the fourth move is kind of up for grabs. Like, if there's something you want, or like you feel like you really, could benefit your team, like, you definitely can run something other than Taunt or Ironhead. I just personally thought that those were like solid like options if you just had to start out, and then you could figure out what you wanted specifically later. Next set is a Life Orb set. Exact same EVs. The idea is similar, except not every team has a Focus Sash available, and with Life Orb, Urshifu will do a lot of damage, and especially when you consider that, again, you can't protect against it. I think it's pretty solid. Like, if you can find a way to enable Urshifu to be attacking consistently, especially without getting knocked out, it should be doing pretty big damage, I think. The idea here is that, like, your coverage move isn't as important, although, honestly, on the Dark type one, like, maybe you run Steel anyway, so you can just hit Togekiss harder, but on the Water one, I added priority moves, because I figured if you have the extra power boost, then you can kind of justify the fact that, you know, these moves aren't traditionally expected to be very strong. But yeah, again, you can run coverage moves. I do recommend you run Detect and the 2 stab moves. You don't have to run Close Combat, you could run Superpower, but since you don't really, like, Urshifu Focus Sash for me is, like, it's going to get 2-hit KO'd anyway, and Urshifu Life Orb for me is going to get 1-hit KO'd most of the time by any good special move. Like, I figure you can run Close Combat because you're not focusing on survivability, you're focusing on the utility you get from Unseen Fist in addition to the offensive pressure you put on, which I guess counts as the utility. So yeah, focusing more on offensive power rather than defensive, so I think it's fine to drop your bulk. The last 2 sets that I made are unique, unlike, so these are kind of the unique ones for each of these that I came up with. The first one is, if you're running Dark-type Urshifu, you have a 120 base power move that can't be intimidated and hits through Protect, right? And it's Dark-type as well. So I thought, hey, you know, this thing's already hitting Dragon Ball for super effective damage. What if we gave it a Choice Scarf? A Choice Scarf traditionally has been a good item in VGC, however, this year it's been rather weak, in my opinion. So I'm not going to swear by this set being good. This is just something that I would personally try. I gave it enough speed to outspeed Dragapult and put the rest in bulk. Could help. If other people are running Choice Scarf Urshifu, then you probably want to run a max speed, but yeah. You also have U-Turn on Urshifu, which is another reason why I think Choice Scarf could be good, because versus a lot of Pokemon, you can kind of lead it, or bring it in at some point, and then put on pressure, and then if you don't want to, if it's not good on the field, you can at least U-Turn out. Choice Scarf users with U-Turn is pretty valuable, and U-Turn overall is a great utility move, so yeah, this has a positive matchup versus, like, Mold Breaker Excadrill, versus Incineroar does okay, versus Dragapult it does pretty well, versus Dusclops. I mean, Dark-type Urshifu has a lot of offensive matchups that are good. It does pretty poorly against Togekiss, though, and Amoonguss, although it actually is better than against Amoonguss than other other Urshifu for me. So, yeah. And then last but not least, we have Assault Vest Urshifu. I mean, this seems obvious to me. Like, Urshifu has good offensive... Like, normally if a Pokemon is good, like, very good in one area and very bad in another, what you either do is you put it, like, you make it great in one area and just keep the very bad already, or you try and you say, okay, well, like, I'm already very good in this one area, for example, my attack stat, maybe I don't have to invest as much, instead I can try and shore up my defenses, which are rather weak. So that's the theory behind Assault Vest Urshifu. I think if you're going to Assault Vest, you definitely want the water for me, personally, just because the bulk is pretty bad, or the typing is so much worse on Dark One. Specifically, the 4 times weakness to Fairy is pretty bad, especially in a metagame with so many fairies. So yeah, that's why, for me, for example, I'd probably prefer the water one, but I gave this one a lot of special bulk. The EVs allow it to survive modest max special attack Togekiss max move, Airstream, or Dazzling Gleam, so it should be able to take a lot of attacks, and if you max it, it'll be really, really bulky. I think this could be interesting in Assault Vest bulky Urshifu, especially on a team where, like, you have other forms of speed control, such as Icy Wind or Tailwind, where you don't really need the speed as much. So I don't know. I'm not saying it's, like, guaranteed good or anything, but that's just something that I came up with and that I would look to test myself when I get around to testing Urshifu. So with all that being said, I think those are all the sets I have. Don't need to drag this one out longer, just for the sake of it. So I hope you enjoyed. I hope you if you try out these sets, let me know which ones you like, because I haven't tested these. These are just kind of like, if I was gonna try Urshifu right now, these are the sets that I would start with and then go from there. So yeah, if you enjoyed, please leave a like, please subscribe, and I'll see you tomorrow for the next video. Goodbye.